also very near and dear to my heart. And this event was actually supposed to happen back in May, but we couldn't do that. So we couldn't ask for more beautiful weather here in upstate New York on November 6th. So I think that is one good thing out of COVID that helped me, is that we have beautiful weather today. So how today is going to work is we are going to have Father Neil say a prayer, and then people will go over to the boxes that are over behind Allison. Allison, if you want to raise your hand, she will give you a barbecue skewer, and you can pick out a pinwheel. The black and silver are if you have lost somebody to overdose. The purple and teal are if you're honoring somebody from suicide. Allison has markers. You can write the person's name on the stick if you wish, and then we will plant them in a place where you feel comfortable, and then we will do a moment of silence. We'll wrap up and head on inside to the emergency management for our panel discussion. Okay?
Let us pray. Most loving, merciful, and gracious God, on this day we remember and pray for our loved ones whom we have lost to suicide and overdose. We give you thanks and praise for the blessing that they were in our lives, and we commend them into your merciful and loving arms and presence. May light perpetual shine upon them, and may they rest in peace. Pour out your love, presence, and peace on all those who continue to mourn. May they cast their concerns and fix their eyes upon you. Bring healing to the hearts of all who are heartbroken, peace to the distraught, and hope to the hopeless. We pray for all those individuals and families struggling today. Show them the way forward where there appears to be none. May we each do our part to bring an end to the heartbreak of loss due to overdose and suicide. Empower us all to love one another as you love us. And we ask this in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Father. So if you'd like to go over, Allison will make sure that you have your pinwheel and your stake, and then we can go ahead and start planting the pinwheels. Allison has one for you. You're welcome. And we're going to be interviewed. Good. Your skewers are there, and then Allison. Yeah, but you don't have to fix it, right?
Yeah, I just have to carry everything in there. That's all.
Somebody asked me to talk on spot. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
So we're just going to come together again. I'm going to have Father Neil do just a brief moment of silence, and then we will disseminate back into the emergency management office.
Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Thank you everyone for coming. For those of you that are joining us for the panel discussion, you can feel free to drive your vehicle into the big lot, and we'll meet you in the emergency management office. Thank you. For those of us who are newly into a loss or have been living with a loss for a long time. And I thought the appropriate topic for today for us to discuss was stigma, and the stigma of overdose and the stigma of suicide. Because I think for somebody who is a survivor of suicide, we're scared to say it. When I say I lost someone, somebody very young, they say, well, how? It must have been an accident. Well, people just make that assumption, right? Or when we talk about overdose, we automatically assume that it's a very specific type of individual that dies from overdose, and we know that none of that is true in any way. So when I was thinking about who I was going to ask to speak to you today, I talk about this all the time, and people are sick of hearing me, so I brought in 4 of my favorite people, because I think it's very important for us as a community to hear about overdose and suicide from people who live it every single day and see a very different perspective than myself. So Dwayne Miller is the Vice President of Behavioral Health for St. Mary's Healthcare. I'll let him talk a little bit about himself. Our esteemed Jeff Smith, our Montgomery County Sheriff, and he'll talk about his role in law enforcement with mental health and substance abuse. Nydia Hill from the Cody Project and New Choices, and of course Father Neil. So I'm going to let Dwayne start, and we're just going to keep this very casual and informal. On the table there are a number of resources. My friend Allie was very kind this morning to make up some overdose bags, and there's also some kits, and I'll have just Allie explain what those kits do. But we have some sharps containers that folks can take. We find that a lot of people will dump needles for any kind of use in the garbage, and we're trying to work on that initiative. There's lots of brochures, there's magnets, pamphlets, and then there's little notebooks over there, as well as some coasters and other just materials to take that you can feel free to pass out. Whatever you take with you, please take a lot of it, because I don't have to carry things back selfishly. It's hot. So please take some resources, but I will let Ellie talk a little bit about the bags and how we came about those.
So here I have the Detra bag. It's a deactivation for any medication. So instead of just throwing your medication down in the toilet, what you do is put the medication in here. It can be patches, any liquid, or pill form. You put it in the bag and you'll fill it with warm water. Let it sit in there for 30 seconds, and then you'll fold the bag up and discard it in regular garbage.
Awesome.
Okay, so they're over there, and if you guys ever need extra, just let me know. We have your phone numbers and we can get them to you.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to Dwayne.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We're a number of you here in the crowd. Some haven't had the chance to meet yet. As Sarah mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Behavioral Health at St. Mary's. By training, I'm a social worker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and in the past have been a therapist working in both mental health and addictions. I'm also a survivor of suicide. I'm in possession of a suicide note given to me as someone who's no longer with us. So I make a connection at that end. That's not something I talk too much about, but today it's certainly appropriate for that. And we'll talk about this as we move forward, but this is kind of, certainly in our field, this is what we put up on the wall that, okay, this is what we want to prevent. But as this happens, this is, how do we process this? How do we support each other? How do we, as we look forward, find ways to not have to engage in these kinds of gatherings and discussions? So I'm honored and humbled to be here to share this with you, with some of these very difficult conversations. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Dwayne. My name is Jeff Smith. I'm the sheriff here in Montgomery County. I have lived in this county my entire life. I've been a member of the sheriff's office for almost 32 years. or in law enforcement for 32 years, and I was the emergency management director for 5. So unfortunately, I have, been involved with and seen many of the types of incidents that we're talking about today. To everyone here today who either has had an experience, whether it be a lost one, a loved one, a friend, that has been involved with either an overdose or a suicide, I thank you for coming, because you are showing the courage to bring light to this topic and help all of us make improvements as we move forward. And I also give you my deepest and sincerest sympathies, because I know it's not an easy day for any of you. Sarah, thank you very much, and your public health department for organizing this. Having it here at the sheriff's office is new to us, and I love it out in front of the sign. And it's a high traffic area, so hopefully it raises awareness to everyone who goes by. Through my law enforcement career, we have made major strides in this county, working with people like Dwayne and his team at St. Mary's, and Sarah and her team at both public health and mental health, and Nydia and Father Neil, and everybody that has a part of this puzzle. So as we get into the topics of discussion, we talk about more specifics. I'll share some statistics with you from this year compared to last year, and talk about this crazy year of 2020 that's caused us trouble with the pandemic, and concerns as we move forward. And I am as well humbled and honored to be a part of this panel, because we do want to stop these things. We never want to deal with these things ever again for any of us, and together I think we can really make a difference, and that's what today's all about. Nydia?
Thank you. Forgiven. Buenos días, mi nombre es Nydia Gil y soy una abogada para el condado de Montgomery County. Trabajo con el proyecto de Cody y soy una persona que ha estado libre de las drogas hace 17 años y 8 meses. So I say that in my native language to say we do recover. You don't have to, this will hurt anyone. It doesn't matter where you come from. I am a person that has been clean and sober for 17 years, and I attest a lot of that to God, the Montgomery County Drug Court Program, Claudia McDuffie, Dwayne Miller, who was my therapist for some time, Sheriff Smith, so he knows a lot of my secrets, Father Neil, Tressa, Tammy, Sarah and I worked together for a long time. And I'm going through something right now in my life that I am deeply hurt, scared. One of my nephews killed someone last Saturday in a driving drunk incident. And my whole entire family and I are in mourning because we've lost him too. And I think it was Debbie, who's not here, that said, don't take this on. He was seeking treatment, but not enough. I've been trying this entire week to just be a peer advocate and help others. And I went and signed up for therapy myself Wednesday because I'm sick about this. I don't know what to do. And I'm a peer advocate and I fight for people on a daily basis. And I'm scared to death of what's gonna happen now. We know the outcome, but how is he gonna live with this? And how is the family that their daughter died gonna survive this? So I'm a peer advocate with New Choices. I've been doing this job on the 17th, it'll be 3 years. It's my passion. Everything I do is centered about being a peer advocate. Everything I do. My children are involved and they don't even know it. My home is about recovery at all times. Not saying that my children can't have a drink, Some of them smoke weed, I'm not happy about it, but they're adults and they don't live in my house, and they don't do it in my house. I'm grateful to be here today because I've seen people, and I've heard of people, and I've worked with people that have committed suicide. And I've also had a lot of people that I've worked with overdose. And we have to stop the stigma. We have to. There's nothing. Just like I'm not ashamed to tell you, this is not what I wanted for my nephew, but this is what he chose. And now we all have to live with it. But I'm not gonna be quiet about it, and I'm not gonna keep it a secret. Because I'm sad that he did it, but I'm not ashamed of him. He has a disease that he can't control. Thank you.
I'm Father Neil Lange, and I serve as the pastor of St. Anne's Episcopal Church in Amsterdam. I also serve as the chaplain to the County Sheriff's Office, the Office of Emergency Management, and the City of Amsterdam Police and Fire Departments. I'm also a registered nurse who practiced for years in the emergency department. And so I have walked with families in a variety of capacities in the midst of these tragic losses. And I think primarily the church and other houses of worship need to be places where that breakdown of the stigma occurs as well. That in communities of faith we're able to say things are rough, things are hurting, people's lives have things going on in them, and we need to be able to have honest conversations with one another where we can come together and support one another in the midst of it. But if we're not able to create an environment where people can share and honestly talk about what's going on, then it's hard to walk with each other if we don't know what's happening, and it's hard to love and support each other if there's a shame in admitting that we're hurting and broken, which is every single one of us. And that need to come together is so important, and I don't know that the faith communities have always done that as well as we could have, and so that's why I make it an essential part of my involvement within the county, so that we can try to get the faith communities involved as part of the dialogue as we move through life with people who are hurting in a variety of ways.
So I had written out some questions for some of you to talk about, just surrounding stigma and your role, and how each of you play a piece of the greater community and supporting individuals. So if you kind of want to use this time to sort of banter back and forth and talk. I know all of you like to talk, so I'm not going to lead the discussion. I'm going to be quiet today. We'll mark that on the calendar too. So I will turn this back over to you to just talk about the discussion points.
So I guess I'll start this round as well. One of the questions that was out there was why are mental health and suicide awareness important to me? And putting aside this is my vocation, my career, it's important because it's the impact that you can have in managing or facilitating or identifying or validating someone's mental health needs is so profound. Every physical ailment that we all are working with, and for those of you who have been there, put that alongside some of the pain that's associated with psychological or emotional pain or trauma. Everything else gets harder. And the good news is if we can identify that and we can put that out on the table, there's so much we can do. But we fight every day against some of these stigmas. As we be honest with ourselves, I'm sure some of you may have heard of someone you know, and they say, oh, they're seeing a therapist. And what is your first thought there? For many, it's, I didn't know there was anything wrong. Or they don't seem like the type of person that would be seeing a counselor. So, and you may not say that, but as many of us are thinking of that, that's the beginning of that stigma. That's our thought process. Those are some of the assumptions. And the more we can put that out there in terms of receiving our health care, the more we can put that alongside everything else that we're doing to keep ourselves healthy, the more progress we're going to have with this. Imagine that person that is in that pain that feels they can't share this. They can't share this because of how others will view them. For some, it can't share this because I don't want to put this burden on the people that I care about. So I'll hold on to this. And as you hold on to this long enough, you get to a point where you think that I'm not sure I can hold on anymore, but I haven't got to that point where I can share this with someone. It's we talk about this worst case scenario where we lose someone to a suicide or an overdose as that worst case scenario, and it's easy for us to go to that word we call preventable. And then the next step is for us to find blame within ourselves. I should have saw this, or they said this, and we kind of Monday morning quarterback all those things that they said, or we thought we saw, and we start putting on ourselves, I should have done something different. That's human nature, but just having these conversations, just putting that out there, being able to say the word, do you feel like you don't want to live anymore? Do you feel like suicide? And not thinking that if I bring this up, that'll put that thought in their head, because we know that that's not how this plays out. It's unfortunately, I hear about just about every one of these, and everyone hurts the same. I may not know this person or not known them, but I know the scenarios. I know where the family is, the loved ones are, the friends, and the people going through this, the survivors of this. It's but seeing those situations where someone who maybe had gone down that road, it didn't play out in that worst case scenario, and you see them as being thankful, you see them as getting stronger, you see them as recognizing that I was in that place, but I didn't have to stay there. Those are the drivers to keep doing this, and to have contact with the people who have done such amazing things in the face of these unbearable circumstances is inspiring. That's why I do this. And I don't see myself as necessarily led there, but as I was there and I found this is, I can't think of anything that's of a greater cause and plays out across so many different areas. That's the importance.
And Dwayne, let me just say that you are good at it, and it is a calling, because Dwayne is one of the first go-to people that I have and our agency has when we have a question or a need, or we need some guidance or some help, and he answers his cell phone 24/7, and there's not a lot of people as dedicated or would be willing to do that, so thank you, Dwayne, for that. One of the things, one of the questions that was presented here that I think may be important is how does your role in the community bring the community together to help those in all stages of need? So obviously overdose and suicide are two different topics, sometimes with the very unfortunate same end result. But again, I want to talk about the partners that have been developed here and give credit where credit is due, because it's not me, it's not the sheriff's office, it's public health and Sarah and mental health, it's Nydia and it's Father Neil and it's Dwayne that provide those valuable services to us. And just to tell you where we've come in the last few years, first of all, we don't believe, and I don't believe, that you can arrest your way out of a drug problem. So that is not the ultimate answer. That is not the end all for an overdose situation. Unfortunately, being in law enforcement, that is part of the equation, right? It's something that when people are in possession or sales or involved in the drug trade, we do have a little responsibility there to them and our community. But we need programs, and we need the ability to communicate, and we need the ability to share that information. And sometimes doing that is difficult. And when you talk about stigmas, right? I want people to know, and I'm trying to educate our staff that we care. Many times you'll see a police officer in a uniform or a patrol car, and they're just there to do their job, right? Write tickets. Well, I want people to know that we care, and we are a true community partner, and we are there to try to help towards solving this problem. We always can't solve the problem, but we want to be a major component and a major part of solving that problem. And you talk about our correctional facility. It's kind of a captive audience when someone gets arrested, right, and they come to the jail. Well, we really didn't have good mental health services. We really didn't have good drug services, and we've made a lot of progress, and we're still not there. We're still not perfect, but with all of these programs and all these partners, we're getting there. We now have mental health services 5 days a week in the correctional facility. Never had that before. We now have peer services in the facility with AA and peer advocates coming and talking about, drug abuse and drug use, and we never had that before. We were in lengthy discussions about medicated treatment for inmates with drug abuse issues, and COVID put an end to some of that stuff for 2020 because the jail has been shut down, but that will happen again. So Sarah has provided syringe exchanges up in this office. We have a CVS medication drop box. We participate in the DEA Drug Take Back Day. I mean, I could go on and on about things that we've all partnered together and provided to try to be a piece of that puzzle. I find it difficult because in our role, I also am concerned about our staff. So every time there's a suicide or an overdose, we care about the families, and we care about providing them the context that they need, whether it be Father Neil or whether it be somebody to help during this extremely difficult time. But don't forget that staff does care, even though on the outside hard shell maybe sometimes it doesn't appear that way, but they sometimes have to make a notification to a family member. They sometimes see things that they necessarily didn't sign up to see, and it's not about feeling sorry for the officers, but in my role in the community, I try to remember both sides of that, because when they go home, just like a family person, even though they don't live with them or it's not a loved one or a close friend, they remember that, so it's something that they need guidance through also. So I think the role as the sheriff in the community is really law enforcement driven, community partner, and then the jail. I mean, it's really like a triangle. There's many different aspects to what the sheriff can do and how we can support moving forward in a positive manner and trying to educate the public and get involved in as much as we possibly can to eliminate this or stop this and break down some of those stigmas.
Thank you. So for us at the Cody Project, and I have to introduce my partners in crime, right? Charlie Behringer, she's a clinician at the Montgomery County Cody office, and our new guy, Stephen Gibson. He's the new SERPA at New Choices in Amsterdam at the Montgomery County office. For me, how we do it is we have to treat the whole person and extend it out to the family, right? So if someone's homeless, they need clothing, toiletries, all of those basic needs that we don't think about because we have them, it's a big thing for someone. It's stigmatizing, for someone to come and say, I don't have these things, right? And being homeless in the street, like who wants to say that to somebody, or the family, right? To have to say my son or my daughter's in the streets, to family, to their church members, So one of the things that we do at New Choices, the Cody Project, is we work with with medical, housing, financial, employment, legals, right? Difficult to work with legals, not because sometimes we want to help them and not have to report, right? That urine came back with some stuff, right? So we're like, okay, so how do we work through this, right? Shar and I are always coming up with things, right? It's like, okay, so we'll bring them in. We were giving them 90, let's say, and we'll bring them in weekly now so that we can have more contact with the individual. I am very involved in the Nar-Nar. I had stopped for a while, then COVID, then I started, and I wasn't getting individuals to come to a Nar-Nar meeting. Nar-Nar is for family members of individuals that suffer with a substance use disorder. So I had talked to Father Neil a while back. He offered, of course, the church. We are going to start back the first Monday in December at 6:30, address
37 Division Street.
37 Division Street, 6:30 Mondays. And that's for the families. Even if your individual has already passed, we can help, right? We have a family program at New Choice's main office in Schenectady that happens. I just got the email with the flyer. That happens, I think it's bi-monthly. And what we, there, the families get to come and talk to one another, talk to clinicians, talk to other family members to support each other, right? Because I'm sure my family and my parents, when I was using, had no idea what to do with me. I know they had no idea what to do with me because I had no idea what to do with me. So that's how we start. I'm a firm believer in same-day dosing of any kind, right? Someone comes to me and they need help, like I gotta try to make that happen right then and there. Because if they leave the office, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna change their minds. They're gonna go use, right? There's so much garbage out there that like that one more, right? That one more might be that last one, right? We had a guy leave our office and go into the bathroom at the Riverfront Center and overdose. Like leave the office. For me, it's like, what do I gotta do? Who do I have to call? Ellis Hospital, St. Mary's ambulatory treatment. Right now, we can't wait. We just started doing a little transporting of individuals. We've gone as far as Utica to take someone to treatment. And I always ask the people, who do you have in your family or in your inner circle that can support you? A lot of times, we have some guys that their wives don't even know they're using. And I'm like, we gotta bring her on. And they don't wanna, no, she can't, no. We need her to be able to learn and support you. We're still working on that one, but with time, right, with time. Being able to come into the job. Language, this is my biggest pet peeve. Language is important. Thank you for the phone lines. Thank you for the translators on the phone. Thank you for the iPads. Thank you for all that. But I can tell you, when I am in crisis, I don't want to talk to a phone, right? When I've been out in the streets and I've been using and I've been ripping and I've been running, I don't want to talk. I don't know who's in that phone. I don't want to talk to them. So be more mindful to have more translators available. Our community is full of individuals, and that's why peer advocates are so important. Family navigators are so important. I can't find a family navigator that can help one of my moms who called me this morning hysterical because her son barely made it in the door being chased by some individuals because he stole something. And now they're all holed up in the house. And she's speaking to me a mile a minute in Spanish, and I'm trying to catch everything she's saying. If I would have told her, hold on, I gotta get a translator, do you think that would have worked for her? It wouldn't have worked. So when we leave here, Steve and I gotta go to that house and pray that we be safe, right? That nothing bad happens to us too. So language, language is one of my biggest pet peeves. Let's make it, let's put it out there more, you know. There's a lot of people that are retired or they're not doing anything, and maybe we can bring them into this SERPA and have them help us with language, just be translators, right? Shar is trying to learn Spanish really hard. She's catching words here and there. Steve just came on, but he'll get it too. You know, we got everybody on board to make the changes, new choices. We're putting everything out in as many languages as we can. Because we see, you know, it's very important. I'm involved in everything and anything that is recovery based. The overdose, I can't wait for them to come back. Our meetings, I can't wait.
January.
Okay, January, yay. That was a
We're
great
getting there.
meeting we used to have. So those are the things, you know, that I do on a daily basis, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I too answer my phone 24/7. I got a 14-year-old that actually takes my phone out of my hand and cuts it off. I'm like, I can't, not right now. I'm waiting for a call. Like, I gotta talk to these people. Being intentional about what we're doing.
Well, and from a perspective of why it's important that we have these conversations is from a church perspective in walking with families, what people don't often recognize is that this is a months and years struggle and journey that families are going through, where many congregations often don't hear about it until it's at the most tragic point. And then meanwhile, families have been enduring the pain that goes along with the unknown and the cycle of things and trying to get help and all of these different things of walking with someone through this path. That when that started to become evident to me time after time of dealing with people in the congregation, then it became important that we've got to be able to have a conversation sooner so that the families and the individuals who are struggling are not walking alone. You know, because people could come every Sunday to church, and the answer at church everybody says is everything is fine. How are you? I'm great. And probably nobody's great, and everybody's got stuff that they're dealing with, and these are daily, months, years of a journey that people would be better served to have their faith community surround them and walk with them than to go alone and only find out when there's a tragedy at the end of a journey. You know, and so then, because that's important, the church has tried to enter the community as a partner, where a lot of churches have opened their space to groups to meet, and it happens all over the county. St. Anne's isn't unique in that, but I think the churches have to move beyond simply we allow a group to meet in the basement or wherever, to the congregations being able to talk about this on Sunday and in the own faith community context, to say, how do we not only make a space available, but how do we serve one another in the midst of our community that's probably unknown, and walk with each other in the journey. Because as a partner, the faith communities have something to offer that the other groups in the partnership don't necessarily bring to the table. I mean, the faith journey answers a lot of questions and deals with a lot of struggles that perhaps don't get answered in another setting. And so I think it's important that faith communities are part of this process of recovery and journey in people's lives.
I just wanted to go back to an important point that Nydia raised. She talked about language as a barrier to communication. And she certainly articulated that well with regard to people speaking different languages, and certainly Spanish most pronounced, but someone who is speaking sign language. But taking that a step further, talking about communication in the context of how that is playing out with our youth, how they are communicating with each other is vastly different than certainly when I was their age. So much of that communication is not occurring in person. And if you've ever studied communication, you know that actually at just a small percentage, 7 to 20% of how we communicate are the words. The rest of that is how we say what we say and physically how we present ourselves. So when you were communicating through a text or through a social media, you don't have all those other elements. So it's reduced down to that piece there. We can only gauge by the words, and maybe if you put them in capital letters or different things. So the other thing that happens in those communication mediums is people can choose selectively how they represent themselves through pictures, or this is what's going on in my life, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. But it's not the whole of that person. It's not what you get when you're in front of that person and having the opportunity to engage in meaningful dialogue, which is so much more than the words that are exchanged to that. So in many ways, that accentuates some of those stigmas we talked about, because people start going back to those words instead of that communication and that feeling and that engagement you have when someone's in front of you. Of course, that was exacerbated by what's going on with the pandemic here. Now, essentially all of us are going to that mode of communication, and we don't have that element. And it's important that we adhere to that, because it is a life and death matter in many cases, but it's all the more reason for us to put in the forefront, how do we communicate? And communicating is not about what you're putting out there, it's about what that person is receiving in front of you, or on the other end of that mode of communication. So you're not communicating if what's inside your head is not getting out there. So being open to interpreting that, being open to, is this received the way I want it to, checking in on that, that plays out in how we engage our friends, our family, our loved ones who may be in the throes of depression or in the throes of an addiction process. The more we're able to do that, the more that kind of stuff is going to come up, and the more we can engage them. So I as Nidhi was bringing that up, I was thinking that's an excellent point. It really plays out in a lot of different areas.
I just want to ask, because I know we're wrapping up at 12:30, if anybody has questions or you want to share anything, I could open it up at this point for that. If not, sure, go ahead.
So to play into with the communication, there's a few things that have to happen in this: in communication, education, and empathy. And I'm going to share a little personal story. I'm not going to cry. My son last Wednesday, my 20-year-old son, right? So here I am, a mom of 5 children. I'm a professional, right? I do this for a living. I'm a survivor of suicide. My father had multiple attempts growing up and succeeded about 5 or 6 years ago. I've had clients make attempts. I've had clients succeed. I've witnessed overdosed. Consider myself educated. I went to nursing school. I have 3 classes left to be a nurse. And I have a 20-year-old who is an alcoholic who went to a facility for treatment, he went to the emergency room in withdrawal. I didn't know this was happening until after he was done at the emergency room. And unfortunately, one of the biggest problems with this right now is COVID. He had to go alone. He didn't have a choice. His check-in time at the hospital was 13:31, so that's 1:30. His checkout time was 14:02. This is from check-in at the front desk to walking out the front door. My child was having nosebleeds because his blood pressure was so high. He was in extreme withdrawals as far as tremors. His heart rate, they did give me at that point, was 125. He was hallucinating. He was confused. And he was discharged and advised to go home and drink more until he could drink less and not at all. Part of that was the communication. So the doctor came in and said, well, this is what's going on and here are your choices. You can get admitted and be here for 5 days, but you've got to stay alone because it's COVID. I can give you some medication to control the withdrawals, but if you drink on it, you're going to die, because we all know that benzos and alcohol are death lethal. Or you can go home. And here he is afraid to be alone, so he chose to go home. Fortunately, I went and picked him up because I wanted to have a conversation about where we're going to go next. Had a conversation. I was told by a nurse that the doctor would never advise me to go home and drink, but the doctor did write that on the discharge paper, so the doctor did advise that. I just think that the doctor didn't take the time to have the communication to explain really what, like, have that conversation. And when I've talked to that facility, and, you know, and I just said, like, they tried to say what I like, first of all, 30 minutes in and out of the ER, I'm telling you, conversations were not had. I would come to the ER if I could get in and out in 30 minutes. I'd be like, please, that's quicker than the doctor's office.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't say, what are you afraid of? What is making you not want to stay here? And he would have said, because I'm not going to stay alone for 5 days. And they could have said, oh, sorry, like visiting hours are 4 to 8 or 5 to 6 or whatever. So he would know. So I picked my son up and saw how bad he was trembling, because I didn't know. I mean, I knew he drank more than I thought he should at 20 years old. I was going to go to another hospital, and then I was like, but I called, because he's like, I'm not going if you can't stay, and I couldn't go because of COVID, and I get that. My husband works for a facility, another facility, because we have a lot in the whole capital region, and I was going to call everyone to find the one I could go sit with him to convince him that he had to go back. I was able to go. We got there, they put him on a heart monitor, and he's like, they did his vitals, they said he needs to go on a cardiac monitor. Mom, we're not sure that this is the worst of this. After 3 doses of Ativan, his heart rate was 132. He was hallucinating more, and the nosebleeds were occurring, and this kid was shaped like, I've done this for a long time, and I've never seen this, and this is my baby. He's a baby at 5. The big difference in it was the doctor came in, and maybe it's because I was there, but I didn't do the talking. It's not mine to do. She wasn't even looking at me. She didn't want to talk to me. She said to him, what's going on? And he said, well, I'm shaking. I drink too much. She said, okay, well, we can help with that. We can make that stop. But what do you want? What do you want to do after this? When we make the shaking stop, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay here? Do you want to go home? Well, if I stay here, do I have to stay alone? And she said, well, when you go to your room, you have to go alone. Mom's going to have to leave once they take you upstairs. But she can come back from 4 to 8, or somebody can come back, even if it wasn't me. Just that conversation changed it for him. And he decided to stay, and he stayed for 3 days. Of course, he cried every time I had to leave at 8 o'clock. But he knew I was coming. He knew he wasn't alone. So I think communication, the empathy, the education, like, I'm sorry, like, and I've had great experiences at that other place. I just think that it was like, this is what's going on, these are your choices, what do you want to do? My son, if he went home and I didn't know as a mom that alcohol withdrawal is deadly, I don't know what would have happened to him. You know, I don't know. And he's okay, he's 9 days sober today. And as a mom who does this for a living, I don't know what to do. You know, but I really think that communication and the right use of language and just the empathy, just to listen to him. Obviously he was scared, as every adult going through any type of withdrawal is scared, as any adult going through any mental health crisis is scared. Sometimes it's just asking the simple question, what are you afraid of? What are your concerns? What do you need? What do you want? And not being that person that says, this is what you gotta do.
And speaking on another point that I forgot to make about how the Cody Project operates, we do treatment without walls. We're a mobile treatment team, so we actually go to people, right? So if you have a mom that can't leave her house because she's got young children, right? But she needs therapy, she needs MAT, she needs peer support services, she needs groceries, like, we have vehicles to go to them. Another system that we use for helping individuals is telehealth, right? All our vans are wired up for telehealth. I'm not good at telehealth. I am not good communicating through text, but we have Zoom, right? We use Zoom for everything. So an individual is at work, and if they miss the appointment, they're not gonna get their medication, but they can go in the bathroom and Zoom with us on their phone and actually speak to me, Charlotte, and the doctor, and get their script sent to the pharmacy. Now, they don't have to be opioid sick, right, or have withdrawal symptoms and go out and buy something. They can leave work and go pick up their medication. So that's like I absolutely love telehealth. I absolutely love Zoom. appointments. I just did my first with my own doctor. It was so weird, but I enjoyed it because I didn't have to go all the way to Saratoga, you know? So these are the things that, as the Cody team, and Cody means Center of Treatment Innovation. So we're new in what we do, but we're old in like practices, and again, it's person-centered treatment. We ask you what you would like to do. Sometimes we say, you know, that's not really a good choice, but you know, we put it back on your lap, because I remember going to treatment and they always wanted to, you gotta do this and you gotta do, and I'm not that girl. You can't be telling me what to do, you know, I want to do this, you know, so, it's working where I didn't think it was gonna be as big as it is, but, people are getting the help they need, and they're going back to work. Like, they're becoming productive members. This guy came to the office just to show me his car keys. Look, I got a car. Like, my hair stands up. And I was like, did you have a license? Oh, okay, good.
The other part, though, is letting the resources be known, so the discharge papers, guess what they offered for services? SAMHSA. Well, I'm glad you offered SAMHSA. Could you change that to OAFA so we could find a New York State treatment program? St. Mary's Addiction Services is in these counties. Come on, I've worked there. They do great services, okay? The Cody Project, the Recovery Center. I mean, we can go as far as Conifer, Camino, whatever, you know, but no, we gave them SAMHSA to Google while you're in alcohol withdrawal.
I just want to thank you for sharing the story and what you went through, because I think it illustrates the whole point of why we're here discussing this is that we're never going to get better at helping one another if we don't know where the breakdown is in the way that we're communicating or the services that we're offering or all the things that are tied up in it. If we don't have these conversations, then we can never do better. And so we need to be able to honestly say what we've gone through so that we can honestly say, this is working, this isn't. This is how we need to communicate, we can't do this. So I just wanted to thank you for being willing to share that.
And Jeff, I was at the reform meeting we had, and there were really good points there, you know, becoming more part of the community, showing, I know kids that would say, I'm not talking to the police, and I'm like, why? They can help, you know what I mean? So just opening, make them more humanized so that people feel more comfortable going to them, you know. I love my Amsterdam Police Department, even though they arrested me at one point, but I still love them. You know, they arrested me and they saved my life at the same time, right? So like, I'm forever grateful for that, you know. Do we have work to do, Jeff? Yeah, we do have the work to do, but you guys are willing, and that's the part, the willingness to help us, you know. I would love for a mom to go to her cop and say, listen, I need your help with my son, instead of waiting to after they arrest him and then, you know, it would be awesome. Thank you.
Definitely.
Do we have any other questions or comments, anything we want to talk to our panel about before we?
I just want to say one thing about stats and numbers, and specifically suicide and mental health awareness. And we talk about it all the time in our weekly updates with the county. We talk about taking five to reach out to family, friends. Just take a minute to reach out to a neighbor and talk to them, communicate, share your experiences. Our numbers for mental health related calls are up by 50 since last year. And our concern each and every day is with COVID and our restrictions and approaching the winter months. And it can be the same for overdose and if someone's using, right?
Mm-hmm.
You feel more secluded, locked up, locked in, you can't get out and do things that you normally can, you don't communicate, so take that 5 and realize that those numbers, that 50 individuals is a lot to me. And if those 50 people were successful in committing suicide, that's 50 less human beings that we have to communicate with, and that's unacceptable. So and that doesn't include the city of Amsterdam, that's just the sheriff's office. So I just take 5, get involved in your community. And you talk about the differences between the county too, with the city and the western part being more rural. Transportation is a problem for services. But we've done mobile
Yes.
crisis training, we've done youth mental health training, right, together in hopes of bridging that gap. So I think things are improving, but we do have a long ways to go, Nydia, and working together, we'll get there.
Yes,
We will.
I agree.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Before we wrap up, there's a person in the room that I need to especially thank for today. My very, very good friend Tammy Morendo from Nathan Latower, who was the person who said, I have money, I'll buy the pinwheels if you do this. And Tammy and I used to work together way back in the day on HIV and AIDS, when HIV and AIDS was first coming into our community. And that's how we met Nydia as well. But Tammy was really the person who kicked me and said, we need to get the pinwheels. I have 600 pinwheels in my office. I want them gone. And so, you know, our friendship and her job at the hospital is really what pushed us to make today happen.
Thank you.
So I have both of my hospitals here represented, so I'm very thankful for that. I don't think that would happen in some bigger counties where I have 2 of my hospital systems in one room, so thank you. And for those of you that took time today to come, it means more to us than you know, so thank you. And to my panel, you know, I can't do this without you, so thank you very much for everything that you do for me personally and professionally. So please take some goodies and giveaways, and if you need us, we're here. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you.